Welcome back to Lenz Comic Corner, Classic/Non-Classic. This is episode 416 and Doubleshot number 337, okay? Two X-Men related trades. First up is X-Men 92, Volume 2, Lilapalooza. I think it's how you pronounce it, yes. This contains the last 5 issues 6 through 10 of X-Men 92 Volume 2. Yeah, this book ended just last year. Now, in my honest opinion, I think that ending this series was a bad idea. For about 2 reasons. 1, it's a really good series, and 2, this cartoon series that this book is a continuation of, there's a humongous fan base. And I'm sure a lot of people were curious what exactly happened during the Westchester Wars, which is referenced in here, and, well, throughout these 10 issues, and it's also referenced in the X-Men 92 Secret Wars book. So basically, this is the third and last trade of this particular volume. Though, my personal theory, the reason I Marvel ended this series, probably because it wasn't selling too well. Now, I gotta throw this out there. What the heck is people's problem with having vampires in comic books? Seriously, what is people's problem with this? Also, why do people have a problem with Jubilee being a vampire? Me? It's an okay thing. I mean, her powers were silly at best. She's more interesting as a vampire than the powers she has in her. Her powers are basically fireworks. Yeah, that was original powers. Also, this book has a basically connection to the book Doom 2099, where there was a version of Scott Summers and Jean Grey who popped up in that series, and they're actually from this timeline. Not the mainstream timeline, just this timeline here. And in these particular 5 issues, we get the introduction to a couple new characters. 1 is this universe version of Abigail Brand. 2, we get the first appearance of, well, mention of Sword exists in this continuity. And there's also, what else? Oh yeah, Death's Head appears in here, and the Brood. And apparently it's referenced in here that the X-Men have fought the Brood in the past. So basically, the writers of the series, Chris Sims and Chad Bowers, they threw in a reference to the mainstream continuity when the X-Men fought the Brood. They threw that in here as basically a past experience they did. Oh yeah, also Lila, what's her name? Let's see. Her name is I have to look up here. Lila Shanley. Yeah, Lila Shanley from the New series shows up in here. And there's also reference to the fact that Guido of X Factor, the government incarnation, was formerly her bodyguard, just like how he was in the mainstream continuity. So there were a lot of references, basically, of stuff that happened in mainstream continuity into this particular timeline, which is great. Kelly, for some reason, even though he was a baron in the previous volume, this one he's the President of the United States, which is fine. I've got no problem with that. But why in the world does he have to wear a cape like he's a baron? Yeah, that itself really makes no sense. There's no reason why he wears it. And the way this book ends, it's like, okay, we end it with a humongous cliffhanger with all the heroes of the world teaming up with the X-Men to take on this Celestial. And they go to this guy to fight him, and that's where the book ends. No, seriously, that's the book ends. We also get appearances here by X-Force, and of course, well, definitely X-Factor. Now, I should point out, though, at the time that the X-Men cartoon was coming out, they were having the government incarnation of X-Factor. The one David created first appeared in X-Factor number 71, and it existed up until X-Factor 149. And that incarnation was referenced a couple times during the when X-Factor was basically a detective agency, which Pierre Dave wrote that one as well. Yeah, and this lineup is simply the lineup from the 90s. It's let's see if I can find the page here for this one. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find a good page for the government incarnation of X-Factor. Let's see here. Here we go. It is Motoman, Polaris, Strong Guy, Wolfsbane, Havoc, and Forge. Yeah, this is the lineup. I think this is by far the original lineup from the group. Yeah. Of course, later on they added Mystique, and a couple other people. But this was a very interesting idea to throw these guys. Now, now it is referenced in here that the X-Men have met these guys before during the course of the TV show in one episode. There was an episode called X Factor. It was Iceman's only appearance in the series, and that introduced this reality's version of X Factor, technically the second X Factor from the mainstream universe. And they threw these guys, and it's the same exact lineup, which is great, the fact that they referenced that as well. But despite the fact, yes, they reference the fact the Cyclops has met these guys, there's no like editorial notes like, hey, watch this episode of X-Men at the X-Men cartoon series to get that reference. This series is just pure awesomeness at its finest, and you can tell basically when you read this series that these writers are huge fans of this particular cartoon series, and they did a great job doing a great continuation of this particular comic book. And it's also referenced during the Westchester Wars. Apparently Magneto himself was killed, which I think he's been killed once in the show, but he came back. Apocalypse shows up in this book. Yeah, and also he doesn't want to do his Four Horsemen anymore. And he teams up with all people. He teams up with his associates are, and I'm not kidding about this. Oh, and let's see if I can get the right page here. Yeah, and Cable's X-Force. Yeah, it's most of the original lineup from the 90s. Yeah, the one that Rob Liefeld and Fabian DeCisa created. The one that first appeared in the final issue of New Mutants Volume 1. Also, Death's Head. Yep, Death's Head appears in the series. Yeah, he's actually the only other new character they have. He's actually one of 3 new characters they have pop up during the course of the series. Let's see here if I can find it. Here we go. His lineup is consisted of Joseph, the clone of Magneto, Cassandra Nova. There's a couple others. Let's see. I think it's also Mystique, and there's one other person. Oh yeah, they also throw in, and I'm not kidding about this, they throw in Dead Girl from the Ecstatic series. Yeah, she's actually in the series, as well as Lola Monet, who I don't think appeared in the show. No, I don't think so. Yeah, also, they threw in Bastion, a character who did not appear in the series, and the character Exodus. Yeah, this is the lineup, basically, of Apocalypse's 12. Basically, I love the look, basically, the artist does this thing. The artist for this series is Attila Vermashila and Corey Hampshire, I think that's how you pronounce the people's name. But yeah, look at this. This is how Apocalypse looked on the X-Men cartoon series. Yeah, this is how he looked. That is spot on recreation of how he looked in the series. Good job, artist. Good job. This is great. But like I said, this series is just awesome. Very, very mad at us. It's sad Marvel canceled this great comic book. Yeah, this is one of the many comic books Marvel canceled last year due to low sales. Yeah, one of the many good comic books people actually loved, and Marvel canceled it due to low sales. Yeah, this book is awesome. I give this book a 9.5 out of 10. Just mad that the series ended. This series is just purely amazing. I don't know why the sales slow for that series. I figured, though, there are plenty of people who are fans of that cartoon. I figured they'd buy it. Apparently not enough bought it. Alright, next up is Avengers and X-Men Access. This trade contains the entire 9-issue limited series written by Rick Remender with artwork by Adam Kubert, the brother of Andy Kubert, and the son of Joe Kubert, the legendary comic artist. I think passed away. I think he is. I think he's still alive. I have to look it up. Lionel Francis Yu, Terry Dodson, and Jim Chang. Now, I don't get why some people don't like this particular crossover. I think the crossover is amazing. My friend Tivy doesn't like it because, well, the whole heroes versus heroes thing. But there's a fun little factoid about this crossover. You see this guy over here? The one looks... Yeah, this is the Hobgoblin. Originally, Marvel had planned to have the Green Goblin in this crossover. But because I don't know, maybe Dan Slott told Rick Remender, hey, you can't have Green Goblin. I just featured him in Superior Spider-Man, so he's off limits. So they decided to just repaint him as the Hobgoblin. Yeah. But, yeah. But, yeah. The whole thing, now, this series is basically split into 3 different acts. First is the Red Supremacy. Yeah. Now, Rick Remender writes the entire series. Now, Adam Kubert, he does the first 2 issues in issue 7. Lionel Francis Yu does issue 3, 4, and 8. Terry Dodson and his wife Rachel Dodson does issues 5 and 6. And 9 is done by Chim Chang with Terry Dodson. With pretty much all 4 artists did the final issue of the series. Yeah. And plus, unlike, let's say, I don't think they did this for when the issues first came out. They actually give a recap of pretty much everything that's happened from AVX up until now. Basically, of Cyclops killing Charles Xavier from AVX number 11, the formation of the Unity Squad, Red Skull's S-Men, and pretty much the stuff that happened in the final 3 issues of Uncanny Avengers Volume 3, which led to this very crossover. So, pretty much, that's the only thing said about the series. You gotta read one 25-issue comic book before you read this comic book, and that's Uncanny Avengers. Yeah, you have to read that 25-issue comic book to pretty much understand the references they do in here. They do throw in one editorial note, and that was reference to issue 18. Now, continuity-wise, excuse me, the first 12 issues and issues 21 and 25 are canon. 13 and 20 are not canon because that takes place in an alternate timeline. Yeah, simply put, Rick Remender, toward the end of his run of the first volume, he kind of retconned issues 13 and 20. He retconned those issues as never happening. Probably for a couple reasons. One, because people didn't like the fact they killed off Rogue, because that probably took a lot of people off. And 2, belonging at the planet and all the heroes. And the one thing that is quite unique about the Uncanny Avengers comic book is the fact that the series was self-contained. Yeah, they threw in references, basically, stuff happening in the Marvel Universe, but it didn't cross over with any comic book. I mean, yeah, the final 3 issues did pretty much lead into this, along with the last 5 issues of Rick Remender's Captain America Volume 7. And there was also issues of Magneto that led to this very comic book, which is quite interesting, which I think that the last trade that collect issues from Volume 1, that trade did collect the Magneto issues, which is great. So yeah. Now, the first act is called Red Supremacy. Simply, pretty much, it's the Avengers and X-Men taking on the Red Skull, and ending with pretty much all the characters being inverted. Now, I should point out, though, basically where this takes place in the Marvel Universe, for Spider-Man's perspective, because he's in the series, this takes place after Spider-Verse. Like, he had just come back from Spider-Verse, and when this crossover was coming out, Spider-Verse was still going up, was pretty much starting up, was pretty much just starting up when this crossover was happening. And basically, from Thor's perspective, takes place during the first issue of Thor of the previous volume for Thor before the current Mighty Thor run. Yep. From Iron Man's perspective, this takes place between the original 10 miniseries, Hulk vs. Iron Man, and Superior Iron Man. Well, the first 3 issues does that, because basically it leads into a Superior Iron Man series. Medusa's perspective takes place sometime during the course of the comic book. And of course, Deadpool issues basically, well, yeah. And then you have the next 3 issues pretty much having revealed that the heroes turned, because during issue 3 they had an inversion happen, and the characters were acting a little bit out of character, and it's revealed in the next issue that everybody, basically, their minds change. All the heroes turned villain, and all the villains that popped up in the storyline turned good. And the villains, basically, Magneto, he actually left like about partway through issue 2, and he comes back at the end, basically, with his group of villains. And his villains are Carnage, Doctor Doom, Sabretooth, Loki, Hobgoblin, and Enchantress. Yeah, those are the villains he assembled. Oh yeah, he also got Jack Lantern. I keep forgetting Jack Lantern's in the crossover. Let me show you. It's by far a really awesome moment with the end issue 2, because the issue of Magneto does basically explain this. Look at this. You know, yeah, it's a 2-page spread, but it's useful. It's a great shocking reveal. You have on this page, you have Hobgoblin, who is over here in the corner. The Jack Lantern. This is actually a character that Rick Remender himself created. Yeah, that's actually from his Venom series. Yeah, this is actually I believe this is the Imposter Green Goblin. Yes, because this is actually when he created. We also have Loki. This is actually Loki. This is actually how Loki currently looks. We also have the Absorbing Man, an old Stan Lee Jack Kirby villain, who's an enemy of Thor. Here's Enchantress, Deadpool, Doctor Doom was right there, Carnage, Sabretooth. So pretty much you have a combination of villains who are enemies of not only you have like 2 enemies of Thor, a couple enemies of the X-Men. Well, Deadpool they threw in there because he's popular. You have you have 3 villains, 3 enemies of 3 enemies of Thor, 1 Fantastic Four villain, at least 3 Spider-Man villains, because why not? And of course, Doctor Doom. So yeah, this was a great thing. Also, I gotta point this out. I'm not sure whose bright idea this was. Yeah, in the first few issues, there's this banner that basically is popping up. Yeah, it's only in the first few issues, and I have no idea why they thought this was a good idea. But yeah, okay. The second act is called Ultra Blast, and the final act is called New World Order. Now, for some of these villains, what they were doing during the course of this crossover, doing what he was doing, that was explained in Avengers World. Mystique, an issue of Amazing X-Men. I have reviewed the trade that collects the issue. Loki in his own solo book. Same thing with Deadpool in their own solo books. Carnage and Hobgoblin in their own mini-series tie into this. Sabretooth, what he was up to during the course of this mini-series. There was sort of a anthology series called Axis Revolutions, where it explains what he was up to during the course of this crossover. Of course, Magneto, basically what he was up to. Excuse me. In his own solo comic book. There's also an issue of Wolverine the X-Men, the final issue of the series, that ties to this very crossover. Oh yeah, also interesting fun fact. There's an issue of Loki, Agent of Asgard, that has a tie into Axis, and the cover is basically a great homage to the first appearance of Loki from Journey the Mission 85. Yeah. So, yeah, for some people you have heroes versus heroes, but there's many good high points to this crossover. You have a crossover where, for the first time since Civil War, you have Spider-Man actually heavily involved with the plot. And he's actually the only really big-name hero. He's actually have 2 regular heroes, who actually is a name, who actually has his own solo book, who actually is not inverted. Yeah, he's actually one of 2 not inverted, who actually is heavily involved with this crossover. Yeah, you also have cameos by Sue Storm, a bunch of the Avengers at this point. Yeah. But this crossover, in my honest opinion, is really, really good. My friend Edgar loves this crossover because this basically redeemed Iron Man. If it hadn't been for this crossover, Iron Man would basically be still in its rut from Karen Gillian's run, and it was saved thanks to the Superior Iron Man comic book by Tom Taylor. It's an awesome comic book, and the first 3 issues tie into this very crossover. Yeah. Also, one thing really good with this crossover, first time in a while anybody's seen Edwin Jarvis, because I think the last time people may have seen him, the top of my head, was actually the start of Brian Michael Bendis' run for the second volume of New Avengers. Yeah, I think that was the last time people officially saw him. But after this crossover ended, what happened to the villains? Well, let's take a look at all of them. Well, Red Skull disappeared for a whole freaking year, didn't show up again until Gary Duggan brought him back in his Uncanny Avengers run. Sabretooth joined the Uncanny Avengers with next volume, was there for that second volume, which is 5 issues, moved over to Uncanny X-Men, stayed there for the entire volume, even also popped up a couple issues of Deadpool, and was involved with Humans vs. X-Men, and currently he's in Weapon X. Hobgoblin, his only appearance since this crossover ended was actually in the final arc of Spider-Woman, the Spider-Woman comic book that just ended a few months ago, which I was not very happy with that. Loki continued appearing in his own comic book prior to Secret Wars, and after Secret Wars, he became a recurring character in Thor. Doctor Doom appeared in Secret Wars, was a recurring character in Iron Man. He currently has his own comic book as the infamous Iron Man, also popped up for a few issues of Avengers. Carnage, on the other hand, after this crossover, Nova also tied this crossover as well. Carnage, on the other hand, popped up in the Aftermath issues of the Aftermath Access issues for Nova, and then he, I think like right after that, he had his own solo comic, and currently he's in jail. As for Enchantress, she appeared in the Loki Age of Asgard comic book for the rest of the series, and she's popped up now and again. She popped up, top of my head, I think she popped up in a few times in Thor, and that's really been it. Yeah, Enchantress is probably one of the two people who appear in this crossover for the villains. Work with Magneto, who doesn't really do very much after this crossover. Heck, Absorbman does even very little. He popped up for like an issue of Thor after this. I think that's it. Yeah, him and Enchantress don't really do jack squat this crossover ends. Of course, Magneto continued to appear in his own solo comic book, appeared in Kenny X-Men, and now he's appearing in X-Men Blue. Because Colin Bunn loves writing the character, so that's the reason why he keeps popping up in the book. But this crossover is just amazing. I don't get why some people don't like this crossover. Why? Because it has the name Avengers and X-Men. It's and, not versus. There's a big difference. And there's actually a good reason why they're fighting each other. Because they've been turned to villains. Yeah, I don't know why this crossover keeps getting dissed. I know a lot of the stuff in this crossover has been ignored by the other writers at Marvel, which is very stupid. I mean, the ramifications crossover are barely affected. I mean, Original Sin is still being affected this very day. But as for this, I mean, barely anybody in the Marvel Universe even brings this event up. I mean, the only people who actually bother do anything with Red Skull is Gary Duggan and Nick Spencer. That is it. They're the only two people who actually do anything with this plot thread. Yeah, this plot thread hung for almost an entire year before someone finally did anything with it. But yeah, good crossover. I'm gonna get this crossover a 9 out. I'm gonna get this a 9 out of 10. It's a great story. Just don't get why some people just don't like it. I like it. My friend Edgar likes it. I know my friend Timmy doesn't like it very much. He doesn't despise it or anything. I know people at Comic Frontline don't really like this crossover very much because, oh, it's hero versus hero, and they just want to forget this crossover happened. Well, it happened. Okay? My only other complaint about this thing, aside from the only major complaint I have, aside from the ramifications thing that's not really much affected or ignored, is the fact there should be some more editorial notes in here. Bringing up stuff that happened in the Avengers, where Nova went because he disappears halfway through the crossover. Yeah, he goes back to Arizona to fight the Hulk, which they should have thrown in a reference to, like, editorial note. Like, if you want to find out what happens here, go read Nova. It's a great promotion tool. I don't get why editors don't want to use editorial notes anymore. It's something that promotes comic books and gets sales up, but yet editors of Marvel just don't care to use things anymore. I think DC still kind of uses in some of the books. Marvel very rarely uses these things anymore. I think they still should be used. Okay? So, that's it for this episode. Stay tuned whenever you get a chance to episode 417, Doubleshot number 338. Okay? Until it, excuse me. I will see you there. Bye.